taking a quick rest before I go unpack groceries, but I wanted to talk about this quite candidly, and it's going to make a lot of you uncomfortable, especially if you are men. And I don't know what to tell you, but unfortunately, you've been groomed in a system that has taught you predatory behavior. That is not only predatory behavior, it is criminal behavior. And it's one of the reasons why they are making it so difficult to prove coercion. And they are also trying to minimize the criminalization and the consequences for coercion. Because we've all seen the Hockey Canada trial, and we've all seen Kavanaugh, and we've seen everything that has been said and done during these questionings and by these perpetrators of violence and rape. And one of the reasons why I think so many men are afraid to stand behind this is because at one point or another, they cross the line from just coercive control on a minor scale, which there is such a thing and it's still not forgivable, to coercion into X. And if you are coercing someone into X, or you are pressuring them, or they fall asleep during your act of, we don't want to admit the fact that we raped someone. And even harder to admit, sorry, work call. But the fact is, many of you have engaged in this. And the fact is, the concept of being criminalized is probably terrifying for all of you, because till now, many of you have had complete free range to make whatever mistake you make with little to zero consequence. I won't say that there has been no consequence in the way that you have been allowed to test your mating skills, dating skills, whatever you want to call them, with women. And I'm talking a lot too to like all those conservative immigrant families who want their sons to have all the experience in the world, but want their daughters to know absolutely fuck all. We know who you are. We know what you've done. We know the experiences that you've had. And we can likely assume that many of them were not consensual. When you look at the legal definition and the criminal code of what consent is. And many of you are going to go and continue to encourage that women not obtain their rights to not be raped and not be violated in order to ensure your own preservation, to not have to pay the consequence of having committed said crime or done such shameful thing. And many of your mothers are protecting you as well, because the fact is that generation justifies anything, and many do so using religion as an excuse. Regardless, at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you what I tell my son. If you're going to mess up and do so intentionally, you don't get to intentionally avoid accountability. You don't get to shrink like you're some weak baby that we know in the circumstance of what you've committed, you definitely had the power and the upper hand. And yes, my son is 9. And no, what I'm referring to is not actual. What I am referring to is still coercion and abuse towards his little brother. Specifically psychological, sometimes escalating to physical hitting. But you don't get to essentially not have to work on your impulse control and not suffer the actual consequence of your lack thereof of impulse control. And if you go on to develop your impulse control, it doesn't mean that the consequences for the previous failures go away. Because the difference between a woman's lack of impulse control versus a man's lack of impulse control, we harm ourselves. Eating disorders, shopping addictions, substance abuse, etc. Men get to take out their lack of impulse control, and other people around them have to suffer. And I don't care whether you agree with this or not. That is the truth, that is the fact, and that is the privilege allocated to you by a patriarchal system. And I'm not saying that there are no women that do this, but if we are going by specifically the data and the stats, it's astronomically more men than women. Not to mention the physical strength aspect of it all. So, sometimes in life, we just have to accept the consequences of our lack of impulse control or the fact that we didn't know better. If women have to, or femme presenting people have to, put up and be sacrificed to a system that imprisons us in households of abuse and violence and rape on a regular basis, where we fear for our lives and our children's safety, then I think it should be fair that should some of those women choose to prosecute, choose to pursue charges, that you quote unquote take it like a man and be held accountable and responsible and just serve your sentence. Because the fact is, we took it like women or femmes, and we've served ours. I've served mine for 41 years, 16 of my own accord. If I have to serve a sentence before getting out for the consequences of my poor judgments in the past, due to my lack of awareness, I think that you should get to serve a sentence too. And some of you might be let out on good behavior. And some of you might have femmes who forgive you because your intention wasn't to harm, despite it harming anyway. And maybe some of you might not get forgiven. And even though you've become a better person, you still have to be held accountable because your victim no longer feels safe in their own skin. And that is the price we pay for causing harm. Again, women are punished for causing harm to themselves. Why do you get a pass for harming other people? Sometimes mistakes cost us. And to the femmes who are victims of rape, to anybody who's a victim of rape, you can both forgive and press charges. You can never forgive if you don't want to. Whatever you choose to do, that is your right. It doesn't make you better or worse than a person who chooses to do things differently. So choose what helps you sleep at night and what helps make you feel safer. Because at some point, someone has to put your best interest first. And sometimes there's no one else out there but you to do it. Some discomfort to sit in.